Welcome back. In this video, we're going to be discussing some options strategies. So these are the things that you could do once you've run. We're going to do a lot of modeling. And so once you've run your models and once you get a prediction for what you believe the stock is going to do, these are some things that you could do in order to profit from the different predictions that your model makes. So specifically in this video, we're going to be talking about bull spreads, the call bull spread, the put bear spread. We're going to be talking about straddles, and we're going to be talking about short straddles. And so these are just some things that you can do in order to profit from your model's predictions. Because, even if you had a crystal ball that told you, exactly what the price of the Dow is going to be tomorrow, there's no way for you to actually make any money on it unless you know the strategies, right? So the first strategy that we're going to discuss here is going to be the call bull spread. And the call bull spread, it's worth noting that it can equally be constructed with puts, and the put bear spread can equally be constructed with calls. We're not going to cover that directly in this particular video, though. So the call bull spread consists of purchasing one call, so long one call, with strike K1, and short or sell another call at strike K2. And K1 and K2 are related. Specifically, K2 exceeds K1. So now, so the idea is that we think that the stock is going to rise and the stock is going to settle somewhere between K1 and K2. So the natural thing to do now is to talk about the payoffs. Well, we saw in the last video that the payoff of a call is the maximum of the stock minus the strike and 0. So we're going to get the maximum of the stock at time t minus K1 and 0. And we're going to give up, we've sold this other call, right? We're going to give up the maximum of the stock minus K2 and 0. So it's worth asking now, what are the different payoffs we could possibly have? We have these two max functions. We got to ask how they behave, right? And so we're going to partition the variable space on the price of the stock. We're going to look at particularly the values when the stock price is less than or equal to K1. And then we're going to look at the values where the stock price is greater than K1 but less than or equal to K2. And then we're going to look at the values where the stock price is greater than K2. And so that covers all possible outcomes. And let's take a look here at those. So when the stock price is less than K1, the first part of our payoff, the first amount here is going to be 0. And that's because the inside the parentheses, the stock value at time t minus the strike K1 is going to be less than 0. So that means the maximum is going to be 0 there. Equivalently, we know from intuition, because K2 is greater than K1, this over here is also going to be 0. So it's just always a 0 payoff when we're less than or equal to K1. Now, when we're between K1 and K2, the right-hand portion over here is going to be 0 because we haven't broken through that K2 value yet. And the left-hand portion over here is going to be the stock minus the strike K1. So our payoff here is an increasing function of the stock minus this constant K1, and then of course minus 0, but we'll omit that. And then finally, when the stock price is greater than K2, if it's greater than K2, it's certainly the case that it's greater than K1. So we'll get the stock price minus K1 out of our first max function here. And then we'll also have the max of the stock price and K2 and 0. Stock price minus K2 and 0 will be certainly the value stock price time t minus K2, because that's going to be non-negative. So we're going to subtract from that the stock price minus K2. Now, this reduces, specifically these stock prices are going to cancel, and then this negative is going to come over here and make a positive. So we're going to end up with the strike price K2 minus K1. So what's the idea here? We've got a fixed payoff of 0 when the stock is less than K1. We've got an increasing function in the stock price when the stock is between K1 and K2, and then we've got a fixed payoff of K2 minus K1 when the stock price is greater than K2. So let's draw a payoff diagram for the bull-call spread, call-bull spread. And we're going to mark off in blue our strike prices, like we keep our colors the same as we did in the last video. K1 and K2 here, and then up here somewhere is going to be K2 minus K1. And we're going to draw our payoff function in green. And so, excuse me, this is supposed to be the stock price at time t. And we're going to draw our payoff function in green. And now this is going to be 0 all the way up until K1. And then we're going to increase until we get to K2. And then we're going to level off, and our payoff maximally is going to be K2 minus K1. And so that's the idea here, is that just like we saw up here with the kind of algebra of these max functions, these are our 3 possible payoffs, and we have a payoff of 0, an increasing payoff of the stock price at time t minus K1, and then we have a fixed payoff of K2 minus K1 thereafter. And so down here just shows it kind of graphically. So this is, again, the payoff diagram for a call bull. Now we can jump into talking about a put bear spread. And again, you can have a put bull spread. It's certainly possible to formulate the bull spread with puts, but we're not going to discuss that in this particular video. Now, the put bear spread is going to be It's going to consist of a long put and a short put. So we're going to long a put with strike, so at strike K2, and we're going to short or sell a put. So we're going to buy and sell a put. Short a put at strike K1. So we're going to buy a put at K2. We're going to sell a put at K1. That's all that's saying. And what's our payoff going to be? We're going to look at, equivalently, the payoff function here. It's going to be the max of, talk about the one that we longed first, the max of K2. And again, it's important to note here, K2 is greater than K1, just like above. So it's the max of K2 minus stock price at time t and 0, minus, because we sold the other one, the max of K1 minus the stock price at time t and 0. And we're going to partition the variable space in the stock price in the same way. We're going to see what happens when the stock price at time t is less than or equal to K1. And then we're going to see what happens when the stock price at time t is greater than K1, but less than or equal to K2. And then we're going to see what happens when the stock price is greater than K2. So when the stock price is less than K1, well, it's certainly the case that it's less than K2. So this part is going to be non-negative, and we're going to have K2 minus ST. And then it's also going to be the case of, by definition, that it's at least that it's non-negative on this part. So we're going to subtract K1. We're going to subtract K1 minus ST. So that means that we'll have a fixed payoff of K2 minus K1 so long as the stock is below K1. Now, when the stock is between K1 and K2, it's going to be less than K2. So again, this part is going to be non-negative. And then it's going to be greater than K1. So this part over here is going to be negative. So the maximum function is going to return 0 there. And we're going to end up with a payoff of K2, a decreasing payoff in the stock price, a payoff of K2 minus the stock price at time t. Now, when the stock price is greater than K2, it's going to be the case that this part over here is going to be negative, so this max function is going to return 0. And it's certainly going to be the case that this part's negative because K1 is less than K2, so this max function is going to return 0, and overall our payoff is going to be 0. And remember, our profit diagram is just the payoff diagram shifted down by a constant, so we're not going to necessarily look at the profit diagram for either the call bull or the put bear, but just know that they are the same diagrams just shifted down by a constant. Now let's draw out the payoff diagram for the put bear spread, and this is going to be as a function of S of t, and we're going to have the payoff on the y axis here, and let's mark off in blue our strike prices. K1 is our strike price here, K2 is our strike price here, and then K2 minus K1 is our maximal payoff, and we'll draw in green our payoff diagram. So when we are less than K1, we have a fixed payoff of the maximal payoff of K2 minus K1. And that's until we get to the stock price being equal to K1, at which point we switch to a payoff of K2 minus the stock price. And so that's going to go, maybe I separated the two a little bit, or I took the wrong angle here. I separated the two a little bit too much, but that's fine. So it's going to be decreasing in the stock price until we hit K2, and then we're going to continue at a payoff of 0 from there, from that point there. So we're gonna have our maximal payoff K2 minus K1 up until the stock price is equal to this value K1, and then we're going to have a decreasing function in the stock price until the stock price reaches this value K2, and then we'll have a payoff of 0 thereafter. So that's what the put bear spread looks like as a payoff diagram, and that's the payoff diagram of put bear spread, or the put bear. Now, the next sort of strategy that we're going to talk about is the straddle. The straddle strategy is just what it sounds like. We're going to straddle a particular strike price K. So we're going to long a call at some strike K, and we're going to long a put at strike K. So what's that going to look like? Well, it's going to the payoff is the next natural question is, what does the payoff look like? And it's going to be the max of K minus ST and 0 for the put, plus the max of of the stock price minus K and 0 for the call, right? So this is the call payoff and the put payoff. We're buying them both, so we're adding the payoffs together to get our total payoff. So there's kind of just one way to think about partitioning the payoffs in terms of the stock price, And that's to look at what happens when the stock price is less than or equal to K, and what happens when the stock price is greater than K. And so when the stock price is less than or equal to K, then the put takes over. When it's exactly equal, of course, the payoff's zero. And so we're going to just touch the axis on our payoff diagram there. But the put's going to take over, and we're going to have a payoff of K minus the strike price, because K is greater than the strike price, so the call is going to be worthless, and the put's going to take over. And so we're going to have a payoff of the strike minus the stock price. Now, when the stock price exceeds the strike price, the put's going to be worthless, and the call is going to take over our payoff function. And so we're going to have a payoff of S of t, the stock price at time t, minus the strike price. And so let's graph the payoff diagram. So here's our axis for payoff. Here's the stock price axis. Here's payoff. And we're gonna mark K here. And so our minimum payoff is here at 0. Our maximal payoff is going to be up here at K. And let's, as always, draw our payoff function in green. And so the minimal payoff, obviously, is the one that I discussed above, where we said that it occurs exactly when the stock price is equal to the strike price. Then the put and the call are both worthless. And in reality, I don't know how often it would happen that they're exactly equal. In fact, if it's a continuous variable, then that probability is 0, right? But that's what it's going to look like. It's going to first be a decreasing function going from K to 0. It's 0 when the stock price equals K, and then it's an increasing function thereafter. And so it's piecewise here, right? And so this is, again, payoff of a straddle. And so you can view this as a piecewise function. You can say payoff equals K minus the stock price at time t when the stock price at time t is less than or equal to K. Or even just when it's less than K, it's 0 when the stock price equals K. And then it's the stock price minus K when the stock price is greater than K. And so it's a piecewise function, just like, and you could look at the bear and the bull in a really similar way above, and maybe that's a good exercise to make sure that you understand these payoff functions. But now we need to talk about what about a short straddle, right? And so we'll switch back to white here, and we'll talk about a short straddle. And it's worth talking about, before we move on here, it's worth talking about why we would purchase a straddle in the first place. Well, if you think about how the profit diagram's going to look, and maybe we'll just pick like an orange color for the profit. The profit diagram is going to look like this. The payoff diagram shifted down, right? Shifted down by some value, and as a matter of fact, it would be lower here. So it's the exact same diagram. It's shifted down just by a constant, right? And the idea is that whenever the stock price is between K minus the future value of the initial cost and K plus the future value of the initial cost, you're not going to make any money. And once it jumps out of the range of those two values, you're going to start to make money, you're going to start to profit. And the way that it jumps out of that range is through volatility. And volatility, we're going to discuss in a separate video, but it's just kind of the variance in how much money you're making off of these options, or off of the stock. It's the variance in the returns on the stock, right? When we talk about the volatility of the stock. And that just means that the stock has to be it means it has to be really volatile. The variance has to be really high to jump out of this kind of area right here. So to jump out of this like unprofitable zone almost, you need a really high variance to make a jump, for the stock price to make a jump out of that unprofitable zone. So now instead of so it's a bet on high volatility is what I'm getting at. So now instead of a bet on high volatility, let's see a bet on low volatility. So the short straddle is just the opposite. It's short a call at K, and it's short a put at K. And it's going to look just like an inverted version of what we have up here. So the short straddle is, the idea is that the payoff's always going to be negative, right? It's at best it's going to be zero, because we're going to have let's write it out here. We're going to have negative. We're short, so it's negative. We sold it, so we're going to have to pay out the max of, this is the call, and then we're going to also have to pay out the max of the put value, the put payoff. So the max of the strike minus the stock and zero. So we're going to have to always pay out the payoffs to the person who bought the call and the person who bought the put. Maybe the same person that we sold them to. Maybe they're making a long straddle, and so we're selling them and so on our end it's a short straddle, and so we're going to pay out the payoffs of the call and the put, right? And so the payoff diagram for this is going to look like, well, we're going to actually go negative on the payoff diagram, right? So so this is the stock price at time T, and then in blue we're going to show, here's K, and then so that's the strike price, and we're gonna the best we can do is gonna be zero, and so when, and let's partition the space in the stock price first before we do anything else. So when the stock price is less than K, less than or equal to K, we pay out the put. So that's going to be K minus stock price. And when the stock price is greater than K, we're paying out on the call. So it looks like, in both cases, it looks like we get the stock minus the strike, or we get the strike minus the stock. But in this case, that's going to be unfavorable, right? So when the stock price is low, we get an increasing function in the stock price, but the worst we can do is if the stock price is zero, then we'd pay out K. So here's K. So that's the worst we could do, and the best we can do is zero. So it's going to look like a line joining these two. So the best we can do is zero. The worst we can do is paying off negative K. So here's our payoff of negative K that we have to pay out. And then equivalently, when the stock price is zero, we are at when the stock price is at the strike price, we're at a payoff of zero here. And so in blue, we're at a payoff of zero when we hit the strike price. And then as the stock price starts to increase, our payoff function starts to decrease again, and it decreases actually without bound now, right? Because the stock price can go on to infinity, to any amount. The stock price can be, it won't be infinity. It'll be some finite number, but it can go on and become larger and larger and larger. And so the amount that we have to pay out is larger and larger and larger. And that's the danger of running a short call, right? So now what do we have here? Well, the profit function, and let's go back to that orange color. The profit function is actually going to be shifted up here, right? So the profit function is going to be shifted up. So we have a positive profit. We have a positive gain. We have a net gain of a maximum of the initial cost, or the future value of the initial cost of the call plus the initial cost of the put right here, right? And so now we have a profitable zone that's going to exist here that's corresponding to the unprofitable zone from the long straddle. So this is a bet on low volatility, because you don't think that it's going to have enough volatility to jump out of this unprofitable zone and make it into, or jump out of this profitable zone and make it into the unprofitable zone, because all this down here is all no profit, negative profit, paying out, right? So you feel like, if you feel like there's low volatility going on in the market, then you should invest in a short straddle, because you don't feel there's enough volatility to really jump out of that profitable zone. You feel like you're gonna make money on the fact that the stock is not going to increase or decrease by a whole lot. And so that's the idea of volatility, and maybe that's a good word to define. It's the spread in stock returns. So if the spread in stock returns is low, then the stock isn't going to increase or decrease by a whole lot. And so you should buy a short straddle. So in summary, the bull strategy is when you have a belief the stock will increase, that your model has predicted that the stock will increase, or you have some other reason to believe that the stock will increase. The bear is the belief the stock will decrease. And that's where you get those two terms, bearish and bullish. The bullish person believes the market's going to increase, or the stock's going to increase. The bearish person believes that it's going to decrease, or the market's going to decrease, or the stock's going to decrease. And so the bullish person will invest long in the market or in the stock. The bearish person will invest short in the market or short in the stock. Now then, the straddle, and this is the long straddle. So the long straddle is belief in high volatility. And we're just going to call it vol. High vol, or high volatility. And then the straddle in the short case, when you're short in the straddle, you have a short position in a straddle, you have a belief in low volatility. So that's how you would use each of these four strategies in order to profit off of the stock price going up, the stock price going down, the stock price moving a lot, or the stock price moving a little. And so these four strategies, you kind of have to interpret what kind of state of the world you're in, and what you can do about it through using one of these strategies or a combination. And for legal reasons, this is of course not financial advice or anything like that. This is just things that you could do if you had any of these beliefs. These are some ways that you could act upon it using the options, the calls, and the puts that we have discussed so far in this series of videos. I hope you learned something. I hope you had a good time. I hope you're having a great day. Have a great rest of your week. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment below, and take care. Bye-bye.